911 Cyber, in partnership with Cyber Material, presents Ask Me Anything Cyber, a dynamic and interactive event that brings together top cybersecurity experts to provide you with actionable insights and strategies to safeguard your digital life. Today's theme is Women Securing the Future. Our event features an engaging lineup of informative segments. We'll start with thoughtful questions for our expert panel. We will also gather insights from our panelists on the role of women in cybersecurity and their personal experiences. This segment will be followed by a Q&A session where you'll get the opportunity to ask insightful questions to the presenters. Without further ado, let's get this event started.
Hello and welcome to Ask Me Anything Cyber, Women Securing the Future. We are thrilled to have you join us today. As you may know, March is Women's History Month, a time to celebrate the contributions and achievements of women across all sectors. And what way better than to mark it, spotlighting the incredible women helping shape the future of cybersecurity. According to the ISA Square, this is a report I'm referring to, women in cybersecurity constitute 20 to 25% of the global cybersecurity workforce. Encouragingly, this representation increases among younger professionals, with 26% of those under 30 identifying as women. Projections suggest that by 2025, women will comprise 30% of the cybersecurity workforce, rising to 35% by 2031. Today's event aims to spotlight the achievements of women in cybersecurity, delve into their leadership journeys, and discuss strategies to foster a more inclusive and equitable industry. Throughout the event, you will be able to ask them questions by visiting slido.com and entering the code #cybermaterial. If you have any problems, you can always refer to the Slido link in the bottom. Remember, the hashtag is #cybermaterial. With that in mind, let's get started. We are really lucky to have such an amazing panel with us here today. Let me quickly introduce them to you all. Rachel Clark is the CEO of Skadi Cyber Defense, pioneering advanced cyber defense strategies tailored for small and medium sized businesses. Sophia is the CTO of 911 Cyber, specializing in cybersecurity emergency assistance for individuals. With over 12 years of experience in this field, she is recognized expert that holds 2 cryptographic patents. Rosie Setia is a financial crime consultant at Ernst & Young Financial Services, bringing over 18 years of expertise in financial crime, anti-money laundering, and regulatory compliance. And last but not the least, Brenda Johnson is a sales executive specializing in cloud solutions and cybersecurity. As sales manager at Skadi Cyber Defense, she drives the adoption of cyber solutions. Now, before we bring everyone on stage, let's watch a quick video about women in cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity is a global challenge, and women are leading the charge, shaping the future of digital safety. Take Parisa Tabriz, Google's security princess, who protects billions of users from cyber threats every day. Or Katie Masuris, the driving force behind vulnerability management and bug bounty programs that are making the internet safer. From Jen Easterly, that has been securing U.S. critical infrastructure and leading national cyber defense efforts. And Nina Dahora, who is advancing cybersecurity research and advocating for ethical technology across Latin America. To Stacy Champagne, founder and CEO at Hacker and Heels, VCSO, and award-winning advocate for women in cybersecurity. Women make up just 25% of the global cybersecurity workforce, yet their contributions are transforming the industry worldwide. Leaders like Dr. Deborah Frinke are driving global cybersecurity research and securing critical data. From global conferences to hands-on mentoring, women are creating a safer, more secure digital world. The future of cybersecurity is in capable hands. Women across the globe are leading the way.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure having you here today. So, We know that everyone's journey is different, and I think hearing your journey might inspire someone out there who's just getting started. So, the question is for all the experts we have here today. What initially got you interested in cybersecurity, and what was your entry point into the field? Let's start with Rachel.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for coming to the event today. I have been in the information technology industry for 35 years, and really cyber back when I started wasn't so much of a concern. And as I gradually moved through roles, cyber became more of a concern. And I noticed that I started to be doing more and more and more cyber work. So for me, it was just a natural progression of my career that I moved from, architecture into cybersecurity.
Okay, Rosie, would you like to go next?
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. So, I think since childhood, there was a dream, and I always wanted, and I see myself as a superhero. So I think landing into a career wherein you can change the world and knowledge is a superpower. So, this world of financial crime compliance, wherein we are not just doing a simple data entry, now every transaction has an effect, a ripple effect, and you can help your banking and non-banks banking services in mitigating the risk of um, anti-money laundering, which is related to the crime, and at the same time terrorist activities, which is very sensitive topic. So these domains really make me feel empowered. So this is how this journey began. And to start, I started my career with the bank. So I think if you understand the banking products and services, you can definitely understand how illicit actors can manipulate and use them for their advantage.
Thank you, Rosie, for your answer, and Rachel. Okay, Brenda.
Okay, I spent many years at Cisco Systems, and I was what was called a services solutions consultant, which means I scoped and quoted the services for all the different technologies that Cisco offered. I covered the group that we called SLED, which is state, local, and educational. And those folks are our government. And what I found more and more was what kept them up at night, what concerned them was cybersecurity. So I started really focusing on putting solutions together for them, and I found myself more and more wanting to focus on just cybersecurity because it made such an impact in the world.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay, last but not the least, Sophie.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Rachel mentioned, I started my tech career as a tech support agent when cybersecurity was not that a thing. And while I was in college, I studied engineering. And then later, I joined a New York based cybersecurity startup. They were focusing on developing hardware devices for advanced authentication. We used to create devices with fingerprint and iris sensors. And during that time, I worked in a novel cryptographic method, which analyzed two patents. And after that, from our experience with tech startups, I eventually became the CTO of 911 Cyber and helping emergency response with individuals.
Thank you for sharing all your stories. And there is clearly with this, that there is no one way into cybersecurity. And that's the part of what makes us feel super rich in opportunities. So, my next question is for Rachel. As the CEO of Skadi, can you tell us about Skadi and your role? What does the future hold for women in cybersecurity?
Well, I really started the journey with Scotty because there was a lot of cyber threat happening with small and medium-sized businesses. And I thought there was a very large gap between the solutions that were being provided to the enterprise market and what was being provided to the SMB market. At the time, before I started Scotty, I was working at a major financial institution. And my thought was, how can we bring that level uh, of defense from the financial institution to the small medium-sized business market? So I founded Scotty in 2023 with that goal in mind. We've really built a lot of great systems around doing end-to-end cybersecurity or layered cybersecurity for small medium-sized business space. And I think it's more than a technology issue, it's also a cost issue. So if you set up a cybersecurity operations center today, as an example, it'll probably cost you about $1 million a year. And that is totally unaffordable if you're running a bakery with 10 employees. So
Yeah.
what we really wanted to do is also make it financially accessible to those folks. And we did. So we charge a subscription fee by endpoint. It's not very much money, but they get the same enterprise level defense that a bank would have or a large organization would have. Now, when I started, Scotty, I got a call from the government of Ontario in Canada, and they said, "Oh, we noticed that you're a woman-owned and woman-owned cybersecurity business." They told us that we were only 19 out of 350 companies in Ontario who do cybersecurity who have women founders. So that is a very low number. And I think that we need to get young women involved in STEM and have them be curious about what the cybersecurity field holds. Because it's just not an interest level from younger folks to say, I'm in high school or I'm just starting university and I want to be in cybersecurity. The good news, though, is that number is increasing all the time. I'm seeing a lot more women in cybersecurity than I did 30 years ago. So I think the future is bright, and I think it's a viable career for people who, want to be involved in the sciences or computer science and see a way forward.
Thank you for such an insightful answer, Rachel, especially for drawing the attention to, the financial issues that small and medium-sized businesses might face, especially if they're owning a bakery and they have 1 to 2 employees. Digital protection might be something that could be of a big concern. And thank you for drawing the attention to the fact that things are improving for women out there. And so, with that, moving on. So, Rosie, your work at Ernest and Young gives you a unique perspective. Can you walk us through what the day to day looks like as a financial crime consultant? And from your experience, how has that role and women's presence in it evolved over time?
You're muted.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. So that's a complex one. So let me just start with the giving you the answer how and why it is important. So as per the United Nations of Office Drugs and Crime, 2 to 5% of our global GDP is laundered annually every year, which is approximate 800 billions to 2 trillions. And in year 2025, financial institutions worldwide face 5 billions in penalty for being non-compliant with the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regulations. And according to the Global Financial Integrity, every year, close to $150 billion are being laundered, or the money has been derived from the human trafficking. So this is a sensitivity and the a bigger cause that is attached to our work. So my day starts with the cup of coffee, and it starts with reading the global news, how and what is happening around the globe. As a financial crime practitioner, I have to stay updated with what's happening around the world. I go through the Economic Times and the update globally about the regulators so that we know if some new regulation or new act is going to come our way. So that's how it starts. And then we start with connecting with the team, understanding what's lined up, what are the priority work, for example, the high risk customers or customers wherein we need to do enhanced due diligence, they would line up second. There is one part of the day wherein the second half wherein we have to work very closely with the teams, with like legal department, risk, and the stakeholders, wherein we have to update them on the various engagement, or if we are working on any specific project, so we have to give an update to our clients how we are progressing, where we are with number of cases, and if there is any roadblock, we have to flag it at the initial stage. uh, Another half of the day wherein I spend time in mentoring. Considering 18 years of experience, mentoring is very important for the junior staff and for the various level wherein they would look up to you, that you coach them and give them direction. So ensure that I spend some time in mentoring and coaching. followed by the training. It's key critical. It's very important for us to stay up to date, and we ensure that that piece of information is circulated within the team and everyone is across what's going to come their way. Now, almost by the end of the day, we have to do the regulatory reports. These reports are very crucial in nature because it'll go to the financial intelligence unit of the country. So that's the criticality of those reports, that if there is red flags we have identified, or there are certain clients wherein we feel like we suspect that might be there are initial indicators towards the money laundering or terrorist financing. So we bring
Yeah.
them to the attention of the regulators. So this is how we wind up. This is like a typical day would look like, and definitely sounds mechanical, but every case is a different opportunity. Every time we look into a customer profile, we are amazed. A lot of time,
Yeah.
customers are rigid, even to provide the simple piece of KYC information. It's not that simple anymore, and especially if you're doing performing a KYC for a investment bank, or
Yeah.
or for the private banking customers. Bank doesn't want to
Yeah.
lose their customers. Regulator doesn't want to lose the grip on their policy act and the documents they need. And
Yeah. Yeah.
customers very sensitive. You want to ensure that you maintain the customer sensitivity, but at the same time you meet the regulatory guidelines. So we play very tricky part here, and keys to balance between your stakeholders, your client, and your regulators. So this
Okay.
is pretty much my
Yeah.
day.
Thank you. I mean, you started your answer with a cup of coffee, and then, you jump straight from that to sensitive topics. And you also mentioned about the mentorship you do. It is tricky work, but I think the mentorship part is very valuable. All right, moving on to Brenda. Can you describe your typical day as a cybersecurity professional, and how have you seen the role of women in cybersecurity change over the years?
Brenda, you're on mute.
Um,
I think there's a problem with the audio, Brenda's
with
audio.
the audio.
Mhm.
It's all right. We'll circle back to you, Brenda.
Okay.
Hopefully, by then, we'll be able to fix it. So, moving on to Sophie. Working at 911 Cyber, you've seen the industry firsthand. Can you tell us what you do at 911 Cyber? And from your experience, how have you seen these opportunities for women in cybersecurity evolve?
Okay. I'm sorry, Brenda. You want to try one more time if you can hear
Yeah.
you, or let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Okay, very strange.
No
Okay,
worries.
yeah, I can go ahead and go now. It wasn't showing muted on my end, by the way. It was very strange. I was just kind of trying to push buttons to get things going. What I do during the day is, because I'm sales, I reach out to potential customers, which, as Rachel mentioned, are small and medium businesses, folks that really need cybersecurity but may not really yet realize it. Many of them just have antivirus, and antivirus is not going to be enough to protect them. Right now, over 80% of all ransomware attacks happen to small and medium businesses. So we're really focusing on doing outreach and education. I've been doing a lot of presentations to, say, local Rotary groups, where people are astounded to find out that small and medium businesses form such a large target for the ransomware bad actors and the hacktivists and the hackers. So that's a lot of my typical day. My day also starts with multiple cups of coffee, I might add. I really enjoy my Keurig and my Nespresso. So without that, I couldn't function. And as far as the role of women in cybersecurity changing over the years, I've been in the industry for a lot longer than this, but I entered cybersecurity 10 years ago when I was with Cisco. And back then, there were really not that many women. Migrating through the years, I see more and more women joining cybersecurity because it's an area where knowledge really levels the playing field. And if you know what you're doing and you really study the details and understand cybersecurity, I don't see as much bias in the cybersecurity field as I did in, say, networking in general.
Thank you for talking about businesses having just an antivirus and how they need to protect themselves more digitally, and about the
Yes.
coffee, multiple coffee. I also start my day with a lot of tea. And as you mentioned, this was actually a very big insight, the one that you just shared, where you did not see as much bias in the cybersecurity industry than you saw in the networking industry. And I think that's actually a huge sign of improvement. Thank you so much, Brenda. All right, moving on to Sophie. Sophie, can you tell us what you do at 911 Cyber? And from your experience, how have you seen opportunities for women in cybersecurity evolve?
Okay, yeah, sure. Like everybody here, I also start with a cup of coffee, like everybody else. Is my gas so I can start working. And especially because I'm leading our technical operations, I usually oversee everything from development, implementation of advanced cybersecurity solutions. And I usually work very closely with our engineering teams. We improve the security infrastructure, and I also am in charge of integrating new technology like AI driven solutions that we are implementing right now. We are building custom agents that helps users identify issues and remediate them. So this is the reason why you need a lot of coffee. And of course, going back to the question, like how have I seen the industry evolve? Actually, I can say it has been moving like very like fast, I can say, since the pandemic, because there's a lot of new initiatives that I've seen popping out all the time. A lot of accessible pathways for women to enter cybersecurity. I've seen a lot of scholarships that are being offering, networking events, and dedicated training programs for women, which is amazing. And a lot of supportive groups I've seen around, like Women in Cybersecurity, Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu, and also the Diana Initiative. Those are like communities that women have a wonderful space where they can grow, they can network, they can find mentorship, they can find scholarships and opportunities. And I've seen this growing a lot, and I love it.
Thank you, Sophia, for the answer. And thank you, everyone, for telling us how you got hooked onto cybersecurity. Before we head into the next segment, we'd love to hear from you, our audience. We are launching a quick poll via Slido. And the question is, what do you think is the biggest barrier to women entering cybersecurity? You'll see the poll pop up now. And go ahead and pick your most suited option. We'll circle back to it shortly and let's see our panel's take on it. All right. Thank you again to our panel for those amazing insights earlier. Now, let's shift the gears a little and talk about something that's incredibly important, the challenges. Because while is being made, there are still real barriers when it comes to leadership, hiring, retention, and women in cybersecurity. So the question is, what are the biggest challenges women face in leadership roles with cybersecurity? Rachel, would you like to start?
Sure. So for me, I just want to pivot on what I said earlier. There's not a very good pipeline for women in to get into cybersecurity. So for me, I think it starts with education, not just at the high school level or at the college level, but uh, you're starting out from the beginning. And it's really about cyber awareness, making letting people see that it's an actual viable path to be in. It's a very male-dominated industry. And I don't think that women see themselves in the cybersecurity space as much as they could. So things like what we're doing today are helpful because we can see that there are other women who are in our space and that, there's plenty of room for women in this space. I also want to say there's a lot of thought around how diverse cybersecurity teams help to thwart cyber threat because criminals come from all different backgrounds, et cetera. So just having, the same types of people on your team with the same ideas isn't really the best way to help, service cyber threat. So for me, having a diverse team as possible is really, really important. Now, Scotty is a very heavily female company, but we do look for opportunities to get all kinds of different perspectives on the team. So I just really think it starts with education and helping women, whether it's through code academies and high school or college, or to have opportunities in the space where they can learn and grow into these fields, that's where it would be for me.
Thank you. And thank you for highlighting points of education and awareness for women to actually think that this is a viable path, to build a career on cybersecurity. My next question is for Brenda. How do you think companies can create more inclusive hiring and retention policies?
Okay, there's a number of different things that we can do. A lot of the DEI initiatives that companies are still continuing with have been highly successful. I was fortunate enough to be a part of VMware's and Cisco's, and I've seen the education process where people didn't realize that they had unconscious biases. I've seen people go through these training programs and find that they indeed did. Some other things that they could do would be to have a segment where there would be blind interviews or blind responses to interview questions. I'm also a musician, and a number of musicians found that if there were blind auditions, women got more orchestra roles than if people could see that they were female. And I think that would hold true as well within this industry, in this space.
I love that parallelism.
Yeah. That was a really good insight. The point you just made about it just being a blind interview, and how if the other person does not know who they are talking to, women tend to score just a little bit higher. Rosie, can you
Yes.
tell us your thoughts about it?
So, not about the cyber or financial crime, entire industry or the corporate world, it's often male dominated, but the women brings a very unique blend of emotional intelligence, attention to detail, and strategic thinking. We do because we are good at it. All this comes naturally to us. So now I think we are, because there's a lot more awareness around women, a seat on the table for the women. I think we are dealing with a conscious bias now. A lot of time, as you have mentioned, could be a blind interview, but a lot of time, instead of giving a position on a table based on a merit, there's a conscious bias to give a seat to a diverse profile, which is sometimes, bothers me, because at the end, sometimes you look back and reflect, we start criticizing ourselves, or we start reflecting that, do we deserve it, or is it just a diverse profile on the table? So a conscious bias is something we are dealing with, and I would uh, happily accept that thought, I'm not deserving, please, I'm happy to step down. But if I'm on the table, or if some role has been offered to me, it's clearly on the merit, and it should not come from any kind of subconscious bias or a conscious bias now.
Those are some great takeaways, especially about the dilemma of conscious bias. And it might make women feel like, are we really worth it? Or is this just some sort of a, um, plan or plot for inclusivity? That's actually very, very good. Interesting. Okay. For the next question, I will open it up to the panel. Have you ever faced bias in your career? How did you handle it? We'd love to hear your story.
That's a very
I'll
sensitive
talk at once here.
question. However, I do have an anecdote if nobody else has one. But it happened to me while I was working for a company, cybersecurity company. I was based out of South Korea. And I had the opportunity to interview a head manager for the country. And I invited this person to the interview, and when I welcomed him to the office, I said, "Okay, just sit down. We're gonna be talking about." And the guy stood up, and he was looking at me and waiting for me to leave the room. And then I was like, "Well, we're about to start the interview," and he was like, "Oh, excuse me. I thought you were the assistant." And I was like, well, I'm your tech evaluator here. I'm gonna be like talking to you right now. So that was like, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's not the guy's fault per se, I can say, but he got some bias there, thinking because I was very like welcoming and very like, I don't know, nice. He thought I was just like the assistant that was walking him into the room to
Yeah.
talk to somebody else. I don't know. He was expecting a different person interviewing him, but that's my personal experience.
So, does anybody else have something like that that has happened to them in their field of career?
I've had a number of them. What I find is I've had both overt and simple bias. The simple bias is actually the hardest to deal with because it's so subtle. It's hard to deflect. For example, when you're in a meeting and there's all men and they start talking over you. And what you have to do is just be persistent and keep saying what you were saying over and over, maybe a little bit louder each time
Yeah.
until you're finally heard. The overt ones can tend to make the person who's perpetrating that look so bad to others that you don't really have to do anything. That's what I've found.
All right. Thank you for your, sharing your stories, both Sophie and Brenda. Now, I want to turn the spotlight to our audience for a moment. Here's a question for you to really think about, and feel free to drop your answers in the chat. What's the one thing your workplace could do to support women in cybersecurity? And another reminder to visit Slido for asking your questions or leave your questions in the chat. You can do either of them. Moving on. As we've heard today, the challenges are real, but let's talk about the opportunities. So, Rachel, my question to you: what can organizations do to actively recruit and retain women in the field?
That's a really great question. And for me, it's about being intentional about doing it. I want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion for a minute because it's really been under attack in terms of, the general political schema.
Yeah.
But it's very, very important to me that we continue on those efforts because when we're intentional about hiring people, and especially women or people of color or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, uh, then we're not shutting the door to those folks, right? So, for example, you know, we may generate events at Scotty that help young women to code or to learn about cybersecurity. To me, that's an intentional act to show them that there's space in this field, and to be intentional about who we're hiring and why we're doing that. So I really think that it's a shame that we're going through this process of, anti-DEI narratives because it's really means that we have to be a lot more intentional about what we're doing, right?
Sophie, would you like to add
Yeah.
something to that?
Yeah, actually, I always say like gender diversity isn't about like fairness, it's about innovation. Because if you have different perspectives, it's going to improve your workflow. It's going to improve your ideas, and new things that are coming your way are better. So these programs are aimed to get new people that were not listened to before. So if you get them a seat at the table, you get more perspectives, more opportunities. And as I always say, the bad guys, they have a very good DEI program. And they have a lot of different people. So the good guys, we need to have that too.
Thank you for both the great points. It's all about creating environments where, women feel safe, heard, seen, and supported, especially on the long term. All right. So, my next question goes to Brenda. Which groups do you see as providing the most opportunities for growth and development?
There are quite a few within the cybersecurity area. I have lately been working with ISSA. Yes, once again, it's mostly men, but they've been extremely welcoming to women. And I found that they are actually drawing women out in the discussions and encouraging us to ask questions of the speakers. So that's been very, very positive. I also went through the CISSP program and got that certification. ISC is another great organization. They have a lot of webinars and different training and learning and they seem to really go out of their way to draw out women and talk to women as well. As far as specific women's groups, I have to say I haven't done as good a job as I should have in joining them and looking out for them. And if anyone has any suggestions for me, that would be wonderful. Within individual companies, there have been women's groups that have been extremely welcoming and helpful. We had one when I worked for Carbon Black called SHE, Sharing Her Empowerment. And that was one of the most positive experiences I've been through. We would meet and like share books on helping women become more experienced within technology, helping us find our voices. And finding our voices is just extremely important in this industry. So sorry for the long answer there, but there you go.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it
amazing,
was very
Brenda.
insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I
Rosie.
mentioned, I mentioned
Uh,
before a few groups, and we do have a partnership with the Diana Initiative, and I volunteer with
Mhm.
them a lot. And they have wonderful mentorship programs for women and underrepresented groups as well. And it's like for those like young women that they want to break into cyber, or even like other careers that they are not like just starting in the job market right now. These initiatives like Diana Initiative, they help a lot, and they help you with resume building, to mock interviews, to a lot of things that empowers women to get a job in cybersecurity. And there's also the ISC Squares Women's Scholarship. They just
yeah.
like they closed the last week to apply to, but they open it once a year. They offer financial support if you're pursuing a degree in cybersecurity or computer science, and they give you financial support towards your tuition. So it helps a lot of like other women to get financial support, help, and they have the networking space for them to get the help they need.
Okay, that's actually very insightful, and thank you for sharing these very valuable resources. Rosie, would you like to briefly share your thoughts on this?
Sure. I think these are a few great programs, and we should also replicate them in India because there's a lot of scope, and
Yeah,
women are completely coming out of their shell, and they are into IT, cybersecurity, into the fraud domain,
yeah.
AML, wherein I'm very closely working with, so I know that. So I think way forward, as we are talking a lot about digitalization, artificial intelligence, machine learning, it's everywhere in the stock of the town. So I think way forward and where I see opportunity is the fintech, reg tech, wherein the regulatory landscape, because we are compliance. You cannot run multiple things without compliance. You cannot afford to go non-compliant at any given minute, with regulators being very stringent and very mindful of about their policy procedures and how banks and non-banking financial institutions are adopting the policies. So fintech is area which is booming. When I talk about fintech, crypto is there, and now crypto is pretty much familiar, and people are transacting in cryptos, and we have crypto exchange. So the crypto investigation, that's another area which is a good mix of you understanding the technology, and if you have the experience of working in compliance. So if you understand compliance, if you understand banks or non-banking financial institution, how it works, and then you added up the technology, so it's fintech, regtech is a way forward, and definitely there's a scope.
Thank you so much. And as we were just speaking with you, we have some questions coming in on Slido. And what would be the most effective path to get into cyber? Getting experiences in IT and transitioning to cyber, or start from scratch?
I can answer that. So I definitely think you have to have a very solid foundation in information technology to get into this business, and here's why. Because you have to understand networking and networking protocols, server, cloud computing, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all things that are foundational to cybersecurity. So if you're looking to get into cybersecurity, my advice would be to take an IT path, whether that be um, customer support, server support, networking support, or cloud computing. Get a really good foundation in that before you pivot to cybersecurity, because if you do it the opposite way, you're going to have a lot of difficulty understanding some of the things that are happening.
Thank you for
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Anybody else would like to add? Yeah, Brenda.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen people try to go directly into cybersecurity without the IT background. And that's kind of like trying to become a doctor and understand just the disease and not really understand the human body to begin with.
That's actually a very good analogy. Anybody else would like to add anything to this? What would, be the most effective path to get into cyber, as Rachel has already mentioned? Okay, we have actually one more question coming in. How can the field of cybersecurity benefit from a larger women participation in the industry? Sophie, would you like to take this answer?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it's like it's not about like fairness of having more women, but it's about like
Yeah.
better innovation. So if we have a larger pool of women, we can bring new ideas, new perspectives, new like opportunities, and the fact that if we have larger women, we may have more. Because if you see someone that represents you, you tend to say, you know what, I can shoot for that position. I can get there. There's an opportunity for me because somebody else is there. So it creates this like reflection on how like people can like see themselves represented and understand that there's the opportunity for them. So yeah.
Would
Yeah,
anybody else like to?
yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that, we talked about having diverse perspectives in cybersecurity. That is so very important. It's not just about gender, but it's also about life experiences and what, different people have experienced different things and come from different backgrounds. So they may understand things in a different way than somebody else may understand them. And that only benefits our industry. And Sophie, I really liked what you said earlier about cyber criminals because they don't care. If you can commit cybercrime, they'll hire you, right? And all of those folks come from a myriad of different backgrounds and speak a myriad of different languages and so on and so forth. So if we're going to be very good cyber defenders, we have to match the diversity that cyber criminals are having. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful. So the field of cybersecurity benefits from larger women participation because women bring diverse perspectives to an otherwise data or static platform.
Yeah, definitely. Would anybody else like to add from the experts anything to this?
Yeah. Having been through the DEI programs for a number of the larger companies, studies were always cited. I don't have anyone on memory right now that I can pull up and tell you the exact study, but many studies have shown that if you have a very diverse team, you reach decisions faster and you reach better decisions. And these decisions have longer lasting impact because you've pulled from, as Rachel was saying, a pool of people that have diverse life experiences. And our life experience is what allows us to make better decisions and be more creative and think of solutions that perhaps others wouldn't have thought of.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. Also, thank you for asking such insightful questions. Make sure that you keep on asking these questions on Slido. We will definitely circle back to it. All right. We're almost at the top of the hour, but before we wrap up, let's do a quick lightning round. What's one piece of advice you wish you had received earlier in your cybersecurity career? Will some of you like to share your advice with the audience?
I'll go first if that's okay. I think that if I could go back to my younger self and say, Rachel, this is my advice would be to get rid of the imposter syndrome as quickly as I possibly could, because I had it for a long time. I don't belong here. I'm not good enough. It still is like this thing that creeps back into the back of my head even today. And I wish I put a lot more effort into saying that I was good enough, that I was smart enough to start a company, that I was smart enough to do cyber defense a long time ago. So that would be my advice.
Would anybody else like to add to that? One piece of advice that you wish you had received earlier in your cybersecurity career.
So I think in my career, I think by luck, everything was falling in line, starting from banking and then, doing the part of being the leading big four firms, and work happened to be similar in nature. But if somebody would ask me now that what one piece of advice I would give, I would say don't be a jack of all, master of none. Focus on one domain you want to pursue, and you be very very convinced with it. And if you're clear, then you need to align your education, your experience, and your now there's a lot of certifications. You start aligning everything together, instead of picking up 100 things, juggling it. Just pick one field, master it. I think that's the key to success. That's a way forward approach.
We have a question coming in. Like, what's your best advice for a college student graduating in 1 year who is dreaming of making a career in cyber? This kind of goes with the theme of the
Yeah,
advice.
actually
So,
it does.
ladies,
Yeah. So what I will recommend them is to get a mentor right out of the before graduating. That will help you find your path in cybersecurity, as Rosie said. Like, to pick the right path for you in cybersecurity, there are so many options. There are so many things you can do in cyber, and especially if you are graduating, you kind of have like a fresh mind of a lot of new, like, different things. So it's the right moment to pick a good path and look for a good mentor. There's a lot of supportive groups for women that offer mentorship. Of course, if you want to reach out to me, I'm available, and I can mentor anybody, and with from my experience. And I don't know, the other ladies here in the panel also, they may be available. Just a quick email or like message to get someone that can help you, guide you. There's no magic key here. It's very hardworking. You need to be twice as good, because of the gender bias, I say. So, but we are there to support those who are entering cyber, and I'm available to offer these mentorship opportunities. So look for a mentor and like find the right path for you.
okay, thank you. And Brenda, would you like to add something to that? Any resources, mentorship programs, or communities that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I would recommend joining the ISSA groups. The ISSA groups are very welcoming, as I said. They have a lot of speakers that are very insightful. They tend to really pull in a lot of folks, and networking is extremely important in this business. And if you go to an ISSA meeting, you're going to meet a lot of people and shake a lot of hands. Secondly, I would say really focus on the journalistic efforts that are happening in cybersecurity. Keep an eye on what is going on. What are the new attack surfaces? How are these things evolving? What's the new ransomware look like? What areas, what nation states are they coming out of? What are they exploiting? And that's the most important thing. What exploits are happening and what vulnerabilities lead to those exploits being successful?
Thank you for all your answers. I think this segment over here, where you spoke about resources and gave, your one piece of advice, I think this will really help, women or anybody coming into the cybersecurity career, start to boost them up from there. And thank you so much, panelists, for joining us here today and making this event inspiring and impactful. Would you like to share anything else with our audience today?
No,
Anybody? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm honored to be here, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. For the person who is looking for how they get into the cybersecurity field out of college, my advice would be to pick a subset of cybersecurity that you're interested in, whether it be threat intelligence or cybersecurity operations center, or audit and compliance or whatever, and focus on your skills towards that area. But it's been a great panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And before we wrap up, I would like to talk to you guys about something else. And thank you, panelists, for joining us here today, and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay. Before we wrap up, mark your calendars for our next Ask Me Anything Cyber session on April 24th. Cybersecurity powered by AI. We'll explore how AI is shaping cyber threat detection, attack prevention, and its impact on the industry itself. Thank you, all panelists and attendees, once again. Whether you're new to the field, leading a team, or focused on inclusivity, this session will remind us all of our roles in securing the future. Take care and don't forget to follow Cyber Material, and see you all on 24th of April. Have a nice time ahead.